Today on campus, we're back again in the 1970s. At the start of the decade in the state of Wisconsin, the sale of alcohol has been reduced to the age of 18. In the bars and at some dorms at the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, you'll find plenty of Lineys and two main beers brewed from the local Walter Brewing Company, Bub's Beer and Indian Head Country Beer, all of which come in pull-tab cans. In today's episode, we hear a classic, timeless tale of a young man at college who walks into a bar and meets someone that will change his life forever. Only, it's probably not what you think. Stay tuned for this true story, a lesson in life not found in textbooks or online lectures or anywhere even near a classroom. The world will sound so much larger if you have an open mind and ear to hear it. This is Once in College. I'm Pete Griffith. Today's episode was written by Lee Schmidt. Lee started his career writing for his college newspaper and ended up retiring as an award-winning creative director in advertising, writing for TV, video, digital, radio, print, outdoor, and, in his own words, doing his best to avoid direct mail. But more on Lee later. Class is about to begin. Jazz is an acquired taste. Not everybody warms up to it. Some people can take a little of it, but I can take a lot of it. It's not something I grew up with, on the contrary, but despite my upbringing, I learned to love jazz. I grew up with three older brothers and an older sister who all loved both kinds of music, as they say, country and western. When I was 7, an older brother took me to see Johnny Cash live at a small theater in northeast Wisconsin. A few years later, our family went to a local high school where we saw the Grand Ole Opry touring show live on stage. Then, in high school, when country rock took hold, the Eagles, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, I bought those records and wore them out. In the mid-70s, when I was in college, the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, country rock was still going strong. I managed the campus coffee house for a while and booked folk and country artists like Robin and Linda Williams, best known for their many performances on the Prairie Home Companion radio program. To mix things up, I booked a jazz guitarist, Sandy Nasson, for a week-long gig. It was the first time I'd heard jazz live, and although Sandy was an instrumentalist who never sang a single word, I imagined lyrics in my head as I listened to him play. After one performance, I told Sandy I could hear words to his songs that didn't have any written lyrics. He replied, "Yeah, that's always my hope, that a few people in the audience will make the song their own." At the end of his engagement, Sandy said, "You know, Lee, I need a little favor. I'm going to be on the road for a while, and I don't want to haul all my records around with me. Can you hold on to them until I come back this way?" He had a milk crate full of jazz albums. "You can play them if you want," he said. And so, that semester, I dipped a toe into jazz. In that milk crate, I discovered recordings by Chet Baker, Dave Brubeck, and Lester Young. I fell hard for the seductive voices of Etta James and Sarah Vaughan. I simply couldn't get enough of the cool West Coast sound, made popular by the modern jazz quartet with a masterful Milt Jackson on vibraphone. Near the Eau Claire campus, there's a street lined with bars, restaurants, places that cater to college students. One bar is simply The Joynt, Joynt. Unlike most taverns near campus, The Joynt attracted both college kids and townies. The owner, Bill Nolte, was a visual artist, a transplant from New York, who loved music. He had the best jukebox in town, maybe in all of Wisconsin. But he didn't stop there. Bill would hear about world-class musicians who were traveling between gigs in Minneapolis and Chicago and book them for one-night stands at his bar. Now, The Joynt was long and narrow, like old bars are. It had the proportions of an ice cube tray, and it wasn't much bigger. Bill would install makeshift bleachers at one end, move the pool table out at the other, and set up the band so that maybe 100 people could squeeze in to see a show. The artists who played The Joynt? A murderer's row of folk, jazz, and blues artists. The great jazz pianist Bill Evans, who earned 31 Grammy nominations and 7 Grammys. Folk singer Ramblin' Jack Elliott. Odetta, often referred to as the voice of the civil rights movement. Bass player Charlie Mingus, and iconic horn player Dizzy Gillespie, both Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award winners. I didn't initially go to The Joynt for the live music. Bill charged 25 cents for a 7-ounce tap beer. That was not the happy hour price. It was the day in and day out price. Cheap beer and college buddies pulled me into The Joynt. Once there, I met Bill, and for whatever reason, he took a shine to me. Bill told me I needed to see the next band he had booked, Woody Herman and his Thundering Herd. It was jazz, and I was intrigued, but I didn't have the money, whatever it was, $5 or $10, for the price of a ticket. So Bill gave me one. Just put it in my hand, free of charge. Woody Herman, in case you're not a jazz fan, was a long-time swing band leader. Woody's music was more progressive, more edgy than the typical big band sound. He played clarinet and sax, had many hits on the charts, and earned a couple of gold records, including one for the jazz standard Woodchopper's Ball. Keep in mind, Woody released Woodchoppers in 1939, when there was about 200 million fewer people in the country. Everyone was buying that record in the 40s. The night of the show, I got there early and sat right up front. Bill probably had something to do with that, too. Woody's touring band was comprised of 16. Yes, 16. I counted them. 16 hand-picked, up-and-coming young musicians. Lined up, 4 across, and 4 rows deep. I sat so close, I practically had to duck when a trombone player cleared his spit valve. The band played 4 sets between 8 and midnight. During a break, I walked a foot and a half over to the bar, and Woody and I stood elbow to elbow ordering our drinks. Jack, the bartender, served me a Liney's tap without even me asking. Woody, dressed in a dark green suit with a pant crease so sharp you could cut a steak with it, ordered something in a glass with ice. I didn't want to bother him, so I said nothing. Likewise, no one around us spoke to him. He didn't seem aloof, just road-weary from years of touring. When he stepped away from the bar and onto the stage, his 5-foot 8-inch frame moved with a practiced ease. Later, I would learn that Woody, as a child, had been a tap dancer in vaudeville. I was in the presence of a jazz legend that night. I knew I'd never again experience someone of that stature, that close up, leading his band and blowing his instrument loud and with such passion and joy. I was now fully immersed in this extraordinary thing called jazz. A few years ago, my wife Sherry and I returned to Eau Claire, where she had also attended college. We slipped into the Joynt midday, and Bill was still there. I introduced myself and told him that I had seen Woody Herman and his band back in the 1970s. Without missing a beat, Bill looked at me and said, "You're a lucky man." Damn right, Bill. Lucky to have met you, lucky to have discovered jazz in my youth, and to have fallen in love with it for life. Today's episode was produced by Rob Wallace and myself, with a special shout out to Michael Henry for the sound engineering finesse. We want to thank Lee Schmidt again for sharing and writing about his look back on his musical journey, one that really took off back in school. It reminds us that some of the most important things you learn about in college aren't from what you majored in and often don't happen in class or even on campus. Lee has embarked on a new artistic journey, drawing line art portraits of the famous, the infamous, and everyday people. Check them out at leeschmidt.com and follow his Instagram account, Lee Harrison Schmidt. Which reminds us, we're also on the lookout for unique or unusual college experiences. So visit us at onceincollege.com and share one of your own. And you know the drill, but we'll ask anyway. Please give us a like, subscribe, or share this episode with somebody. All that really helps us more than you'd think. At least more than our GPAs ever did. And finally, for those of you wondering, the Joynt is still there on Water Street. You can't get a Bub's beer or an Indian Head Country beer there anymore. The Walter Brewing Company is long gone, as is the band stage, which has been boarded up for storage. But if you ever get a chance to go in, saddle up to the bar and look up. You'll see a few of those cans proudly on display, along with portraits of some of the most iconic artists in American history, who on any given night in the 70s shook the rafters off Bill's place with their music. Until then, I'm Pete Griffith, back next week with more stories like this, all from a time once in college.